who is the head of program of the African Women Development and Communication Network, Feminist, which is probably one of the most interesting networks, feminist and women empowerment networks in Africa. So obviously they will introduce themselves also when we start, but I'm really happy that they are all here and that you will have the chance to listen to the perspective from Colombia to Nepal to Kenya to Egypt, Cameroon and Argentina. So get ready to open your ears and also start thinking questions that you may want to share with them at the end of the webinar. So basically, what the main question, as I said, is what is volunteering? What it could be volunteering under a feminist social contract. Hopefully, we will have some answers by the end of the hour and a half. But especially now to start with a first round of questions and answers with the speakers, we wanted to focus on also invite the speakers to focus on three main topics of the report. The first topic of the report the report will be looking throughout as it's produced. One topic is volunteering and deliberative governance. The other topic is volunteering and co-production of services, social protection services. And the third one is volunteering for social innovation. This is what the State of the World Volunteering Report will be analyzing deeply. And I hope that the speaker, can, as they respond and that they help us sharing, as they share knowledge and insights, they can always come back to think about these issues of participation, governance, deliberation, and gender equality, co-production of services, and also opportunities for social innovation through volunteering. But in particular, and now we are going to start with the round of questions, we thought that to start the conversation about feminism, first of all, we need to talk or discuss volunteering as an unpaid work. As you know, volunteering is considered an unpaid activity, and we would like you to discuss and share your insights how this might be potentially a challenge of a problem, generating more vulnerabilities and more inequality, not really ensuring strong participation. Sometimes with some groups, requests for small payments, sitting fees, or allowances, or universal income, they are stigmatized, but they are still requested to participate actively as citizens, even though when all the burden, in particular in caring activities for women, it's in their shoulders. So we want you to analyze this tension between volunteerism and activism as being something unpaid, and the constraints that this might generate for ensuring long-term quality participation. So this is the first, area of assessment. The second one is for you to explore if volunteering is really at the moment, or it could be a mechanism to promote gender equality, or maybe it's a mechanism that, as it is at the moment, it's not promoting gender equality. So what can you propose for creating change, sustainable change, for volunteerism to be, more gender sensitive and really transform unfair power relations? The third question is about power sharing. Maybe you have something to say about the unfair distribution of resources in the volunteering sector and the unfair distribution of decision-making power, in particular, for example, between the global South and North, or the small power that local organizations and communities are given in volunteering programs when others are, being paid high fees or even given housing opportunities, etc., so they can volunteer. And finally, we would like to let us know if you have any ideas of how volunteering is promoting or not social innovation, for example, around gender norms. I was thinking, for example, in my case, the fact that I had the opportunity to volunteer 20 years ago my mind as a woman, as a young woman, as a young professional completely changed because of the encounter with many others. So this became an opportunity for them to start a volunteering organization myself. So how volunteering really opened up the space for creativity. So I hope that that is more or less clear. What are the, 4 areas or 4 big questions that I wanted to share with you and we wanted you to discuss in your first presentation. And with that, I just first give the floor to Sone from Cameroon and see in the next 3 minutes, what do you want to tell us about your own, considering your own experience and realities in Cameroon and Africa more generally, if you want. Hi, Sone. Introduce yourself as well for a second, please.
Hi everyone, and thanks so much, Cecilia. I'm Zonziwo and the Executive Director for a feminist organization called Women for a Change, and also co-convener for a feminist movement within the Francophone Central Africa. And thanks for inviting me to share my perspective here, because at Women for a Change, volunteerism is very core to the work that we do. And we have a definition to volunteerism where we always say it's feminism to volunteer, because we believe that volunteerism is an act of servant leadership. And we may have different definition, like the UNV has a definition of volunteerism, which is around free will without necessarily monitoring reward. But we believe that as feminists, volunteerism is core to the work that we do. And linking it up to the question you asked around unpaid care work, women all their lives have been volunteering. Be it in their work or even in the community, in the church, all their lives have been volunteering. But then the challenge here is the recognition of the work that they do, as opposed to when their male counterparts volunteered. For instance, like a recent UN report talked about women spend more than close to 13 to 15 hours a day working. And in this number of hours, 40% of this work is paid and 60% is unpaid. This could be either in cleaning the household, caring for the sick one, cooking, and so on. And that is not different from our realities here in Cameroon. But however, the misunderstanding when often people talk about volunteering, they see volunteering as unskilled labor. They see volunteering as just, lack of opportunities. You're just doing that just to, pass time. But we believe that skilled professionals also do volunteer. For instance, retirees, at our organization, we do encourage retirees to also volunteer, because there is need for that cross-learning and there is need for that change of experiencing and expertise. So a volunteer must not necessarily be unskilled. A volunteer can also be skilled. And the key issue here is recognition of that labor. And I want to say that most capitalist economies is thriving on a lot of unpaid care work, and most of this work is done by women. For instance, when women don't go to work and take care of the domestic work at home while the husband go to work, realize that the husband is able to be in the public sector and get paid, whereas the woman at home does not get paid. But the support that the woman supports in taking care of these household activities helps the man to strive at his job site. But then, in terms of recognition of the job that they do, women's unpaid care work is hardly recognized. And all this is informed by the stereotype and the way society has socialized women's labor in the workforce. So I will just stop for now, and would be able to give more experience again in the second round of the conversation. Thank you.
Unmute. So thank you, Sonny. That's exactly almost 3 minutes. So you brought some important topic in regards to skills and unpaid work. I'm wondering now, Ignacio, if you want to share some thoughts in regards to these big questions, but considering your own experiences and your own work.
Bueno, muchas gracias, Cecilia. Bueno, buenas tardes a todos, a todas y a todes. Primero, agradecer a UNV por la invitación, a Global Change y a Subir al Sur por esta oportunidad de estar aquí. Mi nombre es Ignacio Lara, soy argentino, soy politólogo, orgullosamente casado con Pau, con mi marido, con quien desde hace 3 años somos padres de Mateu y de Uma. Además de docente y de investigador, soy presidente de Asuntos del Sur. Como dijo Cecilia, es un think tank que está pensado para diseñar e implementar innovaciones políticas para desarrollar democracias paritarias, inclusivas y participativas, con lo cual nuestro trabajo tiene mucho que ver con el tema que hoy nos reúne. La pregunta claramente disparadora, ¿no? ¿Cómo sería el voluntariado bajo un contrato social feminista? Es realmente muy interesante, muy compleja, y es muy interesante ir a abordarla por partes. Claramente que una concepción feminista del voluntariado es innovar en el voluntariado y en el activismo en términos generales, y creo que es muy importante para las organizaciones de la sociedad civil, pero también para distintas organizaciones internacionales, que haya coherencia entre los objetivos que se persiguen en estas organizaciones y los medios que se utilizan para conseguir esos objetivos. Entonces, si nosotros vamos a trabajar por la igualdad, por la inclusión, por la paridad, bueno, empecemos el trabajo en casa, ¿no? Y que el trabajo en nuestras organizaciones tenga que ver con la paridad, con la inclusión, con la distribución de poder. Entonces, si vemos que hay un cambio en nuestra sociedad, donde ya no es más factible permitir la violencia contra las mujeres, la discriminación por cuestiones de género, bueno, también la forma en que se hace activismo y voluntariado tiene que cambiar y adaptarse a estas nuevas realidades. Hay 2 o 3 dimensiones que me parecen importantes, muy vinculada al primer punto que hablaron sobre el tema de la no remuneración, un poco también volviendo con quien habló precedentemente a mí, la compañera de Camerún. Creo que estoy completamente de acuerdo con lo que ha dicho. Y en primer lugar, creo que el tema de la remuneración es un tema clave. Y no solamente porque sea remunerado monetariamente. Digo, si la persona que hace voluntariado no recibe una remuneración, aunque sea simbólica, o algo a cambio en términos de capacidades, ese voluntariado es una estafa. O sea, el voluntariado tiene que ser el trabajo tiene que ser beneficioso para la organización que está por detrás de ese voluntariado y también para la persona que está haciendo voluntariado. Entonces, tiene que ser una situación win-win, donde todas las partes ganen en ese trabajo. También es fundamental, y en la experiencia que hemos tenido en Asuntos del Sur, el tema de pensar el voluntariado y el activismo desde el paradigma de la interseccionalidad. O sea, dependiendo de la raza, la etnia, la consideración sobre la orientación sexual, sobre la situación socioeconómica, no es lo mismo el voluntariado que puedo hacer yo, que soy una persona, aunque sea homosexual, pero de clase media, con todos mis privilegios bien reconocidos, a una persona que no está en esa misma situación. No se puede solicitar las mismas condiciones. Doy un ejemplo muy breve de una enseñanza que tuve trabajando en este sentido hace varios años con organizaciones de mujeres trans en Paraguay, que realmente yo llegué a reunirme con ellas para comenzar un proyecto que luego fue fantástico y lleno de aprendizaje, pero que ellas tuvieron que darme bofetadas de realidad para decirme que si nosotros no dábamos apoyo económico a las compañeras trans para que pudieran formarse y capacitarse, no podíamos avanzar en un proyecto. Digamos que estábamos teniendo una visión claramente muy centrada en nuestras realidades. Cierro, Cecilia, para no pasarme con los minutos, vale. Pero también retomando algo que dijo la compañera de Camerún, el activismo tiene que ver con la inteligencia colectiva, y la inteligencia colectiva necesita de formación, necesita de saberes múltiples, saberes ancestrales, pero también saberes actuales, poder conjugar esa diversidad y ponerla en valor en las comunidades locales.
Thank you so much, Nacho. That was fast and quick and clear. We can also continue in the second round. I wanted to invite now Rosa Emilia Salamanca from Colombia. I'm very grateful, Rosa Emilia, you are here knowing that everything that is happening in Colombia at the moment. So thank you for taking your time and sharing with us. So your thoughts around these big questions based on your experience as a feminist leader in Colombia.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias, Cecilia. Muchísimas gracias para todas las personas participantes. Y es realmente un honor estar aquí. Y la pregunta es tan grande. Bueno, yo vengo de Colombia, trabajo en la corporación SES, que es una organización feminista mixta. Y es muy interesante porque una de las primeras o de las tensiones que tenemos al interior de la organización es precisamente cómo volver a hacer un contrato social entre hombres y mujeres en el ámbito del trabajo. Porque yo creo que ahí hay una cantidad de tensiones que se dan, de transformaciones culturales, no necesariamente las transformaciones son fáciles desde una perspectiva de los nuevos paradigmas y lo que el feminismo plantea. Entonces creo que ahí hay unos desafíos inmensos culturales. Y entonces quisiera plantear primero que el feminismo lo que plantea es una transformación cultural profunda, estando muy de acuerdo con las dos personas que me antecedieron, donde necesitamos que las relaciones de poder cambien. Y las relaciones de poder están en todas partes, incluyendo el voluntariado, incluyendo cualquier tipo de relación institucional que se pueda dar o cualquier relación social que ahí se da. Entonces, creo que ahí tenemos un desafío inmenso en cómo lograr transformar esa cultura. Pero en particular creo que en los países del sur, tal y como lo planteaban Ignacio y Sonsibu, el asunto es más complejo porque se parte de la idea de que las mujeres somos voluntarias, de que mucho de nuestro trabajo es voluntario y nos agradecen infinitamente porque lo voluntario, lo comprometidas, lo buenas que somos las mujeres, porque hacemos tanto trabajo. Y eso tiene unos costos inmensos, inmensos. Y hay voluntariado de todo nivel. Los voluntariados, si yo me pusiera en la situación actual de Colombia, yo me pregunto si una manera de voluntariado es todas las personas y las mujeres que están en este momento en las manifestaciones. Es tiempo, es su exigencia, qué están haciendo ahí, cómo están haciendo las ollas comunitarias, etcétera, para que la gente se pueda movilizar. Pero en general, creo que transformar este asunto tiene mucho que ver con el reconocimiento real a la contribución de las mujeres a la sociedad, su capacidad de innovación, y por el otro lado, mucho en lo que dice Ignacio. Creo que la diversidad de las mujeres y su capacidad de innovación también viene del lugar de donde provienen. Es decir, y de la escucha que se le tenga a las mujeres. Una mujer indígena puede traer una cantidad de innovaciones, pero eso también pasa porque respetemos y transformemos no solamente las discriminaciones basadas en el sexo, sino también las divisiones basadas en todo el tema de género, en el tema racial, en el tema muy interseccional que planteaba Ignacio, donde poder potenciar esto es clave. Y por último quisiera decir, miren, esto del trabajo no pagado es un trabajo muy complejo y en el que generalmente las mujeres de base son las mujeres que son peor pagadas y que hacen más voluntariado. En el caso nuestro, por ejemplo, cuando nosotras en los proyectos pedimos que se le pague a las mujeres por sus horas, por su trabajo, es porque sabemos que esas condiciones locales son muy difíciles. Y cuando son muy difíciles es prácticamente un compromiso más allá de sus condiciones, el que las mujeres en su diversidad realmente respondan al voluntariado. Muchas gracias, Cecilia.
Muchas gracias, Rosa Emilia. Clarísimo tu planteo sobre las relaciones de poder y conectando con lo que decía Nacho sobre el tema de la necesidad del apoyo económico para sostener la participación, la lucha, la protesta y seguir innovando, ¿no? I'm speaking in Spanish, sorry. But luckily the translators got that. So thank you so much, Rosemilia. I just wanted to choose now switch to Mishi from FemMed and listen to another perspective from I think, Mishi, you are based in Kenya at the moment, but obviously your organization works across Africa. So I really welcome your thoughts about these big questions and anything that maybe is coming to your mind also as you listen to Sone, to Ignacio, Rosemilia. We are all ears. You can unmute.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. And as I listen to colleagues and sisters, I think I do agree and I wish to emphasize that our community has been built on the backs of the women who have done most of the work, and most of them unpaid, most of them unrecognized. And I could not imagine a world where everything that has been done would have been paid for, because most of it, for example, has been done from a very passionate point of view. The history of women's movement in the continent has been the history of women coming together helplessly and passionately to organize, to pull, not only to give their ideas and their time, but also sometimes to even put their own resources in terms of like financial or material resources to see that the community that they represent or the community that they work with prosper, but also the organization that they shape and create image to be an institution that they can serve them. So definitely they have been and will continue to be a place and value for volunteerism. However, I do strongly feel that moving forward, if we have to have volunteerism and to attain the gain of it, the prerequisite of either that organization or community has to be a feminist organization. It has to be a feminist community. And by feminist community, I mean organization that respect women's rights, organization that is safe for women, organization that there's power sharing, there's responsible governance, and there's the organization that is not extorting from the people. If that is the opposite in terms of this organization or community, embrace the patriarchal value, but also embrace economic model that are for profit and extorting from other, volunteerism become a way in which women labor is extracted, women are exploited, and women are taken as a source through which a dominant class get the most on the back of this woman. So to me, I think the fundamental prerequisite for volunteerism to work, it has to be a feminist community, and it has to be a feminist organization. I think I've shared my 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mishi. And I think we are starting to connect some ideas that, you know, if volunteerism it's done in the traditional, typical way, it's just more burden on women, and it's not really changing the power relations. So maybe in the second round we can go a little bit deeper on that. Naveen, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts with the particular challenges that the women in the Arab states and Egypt are facing right now, but also in the past, and how you see the future of women and other gender groups in the region.
First, I would like to thank you the chance to participate in such a very important global report. Secondly, I intensify my interventions in 4 points specifically. One about women and the leadership of the voluntary work in MENA, in Egypt, as example. Actually, we have definitely a problem in dealing with women as a leader for different type of voluntary work. usually women are leaders for certain voluntary work, which is coping their stereotyping in the community, especially, for example, during COVID, most of them had been cooking for who had COVID-19 or providing food, for example. Others were, and this was the best or the most famous voluntary work for women, while they can be participated in other campaigns during COVID as volunteers, which it means that in our country and in MENA maybe as a wide vision, that volunteering is itself should change the stereotyping of women role in the society. And this is very important issue, actually. Secondly, historically, actually, women have been led lots of social change campaigns voluntary, and we need actually to remind ourselves as well, the decision makers, that we can do something different in social changes. We led health campaigns as well. We led political participation campaigns. We led working in manufacturers as well. We led volunteering in war and conflict during conflict conflicts in general. I would like also to draw your attention for the third point about unpaid work to women as a type of volunteering, or what it is actually. We have actually to identify if all the work that we are doing during domestic space, in our family, what shall we consider it? Shall we consider it a voluntary work or unpaid work? Because it's a very important question, and it's a globally one. We need to be, at least, if we will not take money as a income from our work, at least it should be acknowledged for us, for the community, as well for decision makers. Also, I would like to draw your attention for the fourth point and the last about women in conflict areas, because women in conflict areas actually they organize themselves, associate themselves, and trying to establish peaces, or at least peace building in conflict area, especially in MENA as a region which had at least 5 countries under conflict, and we have to focus actually about women as a volunteers during conflict and peace building, how they are participating in negotiation, as well how they are participating in building the community itself, and trying to stakeholders, or at least lead the family after the absence of men during the war, or many other reasons.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you so much, Nevin, also for bringing the particular challenges of women and communities and people in conflict situations, and the challenges that they face in particular, which gets even more complicated and difficult.
Yes, MENA actually, MENA as a region could not cancellate from their vision about any topic actually what is happening in conflict areas. We have at least from 5 to 7 countries in our region who are suffering and under conflict, military conflicts. Which we have to ask about how women are dealing with this, to what extent they're participating actually in political level as well in community and social change.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Nevin. That's a very important topic, and I'm sure, for example, Rosemilia from Colombia have a lot to say about that and potentially ideas to share. Gita, now I would love to hear your thoughts. I know you are from Nepal, and you are there, grounded there, but you're also working globally, trying to mainstream gender throughout all the voluntary service overseas programs globally. So it will be interesting to see from your perspective some comments and also in relation to what other speakers have said.
Thanks, Cecilia, and thank you for this opportunity to share our perspective. And thank you to all the other speakers. It was really interesting to hear some of their perspective, and also some of the challenges that we are also facing. It's quite similar to what some of the other speakers also have referred to. And so I would go on some of those topics, but I'll just go broadly in terms of, say, for VSO, volunteering for development is a core, and we have, volunteering for development programs, a framework, and in which our whole organizational approach and the way that we work is through volunteering. And what we have seen is that towards these changing times over the past few years, from a more feminist perspective, we see that we are working towards more of a blended volunteering model, which is a combination of international volunteers, national volunteers, and community volunteers. Because a lot of time in the volunteering approach, traditionally, the community volunteers and national volunteers weren't volunteers who weren't really, acknowledged and appreciated. And I think there is where some of the, this kind of stereotype or assumptions that volunteers in in their countries are unpaid, or they don't have the technique or knowledge. So we have tried to put some enabling environment for them, like what Ignacio was also referring to, in terms of ensuring that they have minimum sort of allowance to sustain themselves in their volunteering work, but also to support them and give them the due recognition and respect that volunteers deserve across all the countries that we work in. And in that, the power dynamics, which has come up in all the speakers have addressed to, I think the power dynamics is very, is something that come up across all the conversations that we have. And also because we have in some of the countries that we have, there is this internalized oppression due to a cultural, a colonial heritage, of who has power, who has knowledge, or who is perceived to be knowledgeable, or who is perceived to have power and who can influence some of the things that happens in the community, in our programs, the way that we work with our communities in those countries. So so that dynamics is something that we really need to challenge, and we really need to have that dialogue to ensure that power imbalance is neutralized, and in a way that to ensure that there are some knowledge that international volunteers might have, some technical knowledge, but there is a local indigenous knowledge that our national volunteers and the community volunteers that we have. If we are to work in communities, we cannot work without the engagement and partnership of our community volunteers and national volunteers, and that we have seen as evidence that has come up in the COVID response. In after COVID, if we didn't have national volunteers or community volunteers in place, we would not been here. We would not have been able to carry out some of our programs that were there. So that blended volunteering approach and looking at it from the intersectional lens is very important, because we don't have one identities, and I think all of us in the speakers have referred to in terms of from particular context specific, but in all the countries we see the intersectional identity based on race, caste, ethnicity, disability, sexual orientation. These are very important intersectional identities to look through the lens, from a feminist lens, and also to ensure that how we are addressing those issues in that context, and also looking at it from when we gather evidence. A lot of our work, we gather evidence, but how we gathering evidence from a feminist perspective, through that evidence gathering process, how we ensuring that it is a participatory process, but also at the same time, we are also engaging our contract in terms of co-design and co-participation with the communities, but also in that process, how we empowering and transforming and addressing some of the root barriers in terms of the social norms barriers, especially around gender norms and patriarchal norms. So those are things that we really need to address and ensure that that is something that it's an ongoing process, because it is very challenging in the communities that we work with when we are addressing social norms and when we are addressing all these biasness, especially around gender biasness. Even our volunteers also have shared challenges where if you're a white male person who goes to a community, then you're listened to, you're heard to. But if you're a female, if you are, if you're white, then maybe you might be listened to more. But if you're not white, if you're from the global south, there are certain perceptions in terms of what your knowledge is or what your value is, and that's how people will sort of relate to you, or will sort of respond to you and give you that space. So we need to address this power dynamics that is there in the communities, and also how can we promote community leaderships in those communities. So I will stop here and then we can discuss more.
Yeah, don't get too tired, Gita, because in the second round you start. So you have to continue now. So that's extremely useful. I think you are ending with something that all of the speakers have in common, share in common, which is, if you want to look at volunteerism and activism through feminist lenses, you will need to deconstruct power relations as they are today or as they were in the past. That deconstruction of power relations can take many forms. Some of you talk of the relationship between men and women. Some of you talk about the relationship between community volunteers and Global North volunteers. Some of you talk about recognitions of different gender groups and giving visibility and possibility and opportunities for them, for example, trans people to participate. Some of you talk about recognition of the skills that everybody have and everyone brings to the table, and that needs recognition, that needs respect, so it's properly valued, and it just doesn't stay, in an invisible way. So through many different angles and working with these intersectional, interrelated, holistic lenses, you all talk about power relations and deconstructing power relations. So for the next round of questions, and considering what you already said and that you maybe have in your mind that you wanted to say, but you couldn't manage to say, I just want you now to move to more the visioning and provide concrete examples of how that change can come about, how you are doing that in your own organization. So people that are at the other end of the screen, we have 170 participants at the moment connected in different parts of the world, can really take away some knowledge, practical knowledge of how to do it, and learn from your own experience. But also, we can identify some case studies potentially for the report. So we can see, okay, this organization at the national level, at the regional level, at the local level, at the regional level, etc., they're already working with a feminist perspective. And we can do even more, at the global level, at the UNB level, at the government level, to support them to change and transform these unfair power relations. So basically, in this second round, and before you can ask questions to each other, which will be the third round, I want you to start a dialogue without my moderation as we reach the next moment of the dialogue. I want you to tell me exactly how you did it and what do you propose for this new model of volunteering in the 21st century that should be done using these feminist lenses. So Gita, you are first. You give already a few ideas, but maybe you can go deeper on how you are, moving to recognize the community volunteers, how to engage more with them, how to build local ownership and not just, become the more mainstream traditional British organization that comes to the global south to support and aid and changing this north-south dynamic. Particularly, I'm interested in how you do that with the issue that it's difficult to get resources to do all this work. So how would you do that? Can you go a little bit deeper in the next 2 minutes?
Yes, definitely. Thanks, Cecilia. I think I've alluded to some of the systemic change that we have in the organizations in terms of values and ideologies within the organization also, because VSO has been working in this field for over 60, 70 years, and we've traditionally followed the old model of volunteerism, but then now we have changed. So there has been this shift. So this shift also took us some time and some thinking, and even currently at the moment also we're also looking into what is our feminist leadership principles also. So we also, like, because we need to have certain principles that says there's, okay, this is our principles that we identify with, that we can work with, that we can ensure that we can engage and hold all our volunteers, our staff, our partners accountable, and we are also accountable. So going through that engagement process, and it's still a work in progress. It's still something that we're still discussing. And also, like, in that also, we also have an institutional people first principle. So like, say, right now, the new ones that we are sort of, thinking of changing through the feminist lens is, say, self-awareness and awareness of others, which has come out very critical through the research and engagement that we had across the organization, and also about dismantling bias. So dismantling bias also, we see it very important that, because there are biasness in all of us, and we go with that biasness in those communities. If you're not challenging those biasness, especially this unconscious bias around gender, around race and ethnicity, then we are not really, contributing to that social justice from the feminist point of view. So we need to do that. We need to ensure that. So having these kind of systemic policies and engagement in terms of a relational approach is also very important. Few concrete examples in terms of, say, in Nepal, for instance, we have the Sisters for Sisters model, through the blended volunteering model approach. We have community volunteers who are, big sisters or little sisters. So we pair them up. It's more of a peer support, people in their own communities. They help and support each other. Mainly it is around education, but also it is also around a lot of the other issues that we face in the society, around gender norms, around early child marriage, around menstruation hygiene, and all the challenges and taboos. In Nepal there is around menstruation. In Nepal, I'm not sure if people are familiar, but in menstruation, if you're menstruating, it's considered you're impure, and you're not supposed to interact with other members. So all those taboos, so addressing with those. In the same way, in some of the countries in Africa, say for instance in Rwanda, we have this program with the disability group, especially around in the deaf community, challenging sexual and reproductive health rights about for people with disabilities, especially from the deaf communities, and the stereotype and the taboos that they face from the health service providers. So how to sort of work and change their mindset, but also give them some of the skills, because they also are not able to communicate. They don't know how to sign. The health workers don't know how to sign. So how we can facilitate and engage their dialogue and ensure that our volunteers who are working with the deaf community, but also working with the health community, to ensure the health providers, to ensure that they have the capacity. Say for instance, in Bangladesh, we have like the citizenship platform, the youth platform, which focuses on how you can make the government accountable from some of the SDGs commitment around SDG 5, around gender equality, around ending child marriage. So in the same way, we have these kind of forums or platforms, or youth platforms or volunteer platforms across some of our programs in Pakistan or Thailand or in Myanmar also.
Gita, you went over 1 minute. So
I went over, oh, sorry.
But really, thank you, because you bring something that is something that we didn't discuss much in the beginning of the session, which is self-awareness and challenges taboos and social norms, which is the intangible power structures in our consciousness, in our minds, that really, and cultural power structures that are maybe not related with what we talked first, which is these economic boundaries and restrictions and the financial challenges. So I think that's another important topic of how you do it through peer support and creating these networks of mutual learning and accompaniment. So that's super useful as well. Naveen, I'm wondering, from your experience in Egypt, and in particular what you mentioned in conflict zones, what I felt from your presentation is that you basically, first of all, wanted to recognize the work of so many women are doing silently and almost in an invisible way in the region, that sustained sometimes the little level of social cohesion that we normally face in conflict context. So besides, creating this recognition, or how do you do in your own context to create more recognition to this type of work, to the campaigning, cooking work, all the work that you mentioned? And what exactly do you think from your experience and your research, more can be done in the Arab states to recognize the work of women volunteers and other genders groups? You have 2-3 minutes, Nevin. I hope Nevin is here. Yes. Nevin, you need to unmute. Yes.
Yes, yes. I just have a problem in last 5 minutes. Would you please put me on track again, or hello? Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. What's your question, sorry?
I just lost connection the
Okay.
last five minutes. Would you put me on track again, please?
Yes, I'm sorry that we lost you. So I'm basically saying that in your first presentation, you mentioned that in the Arab states in your region, first, it's very important to recognize and to make visible the work that women and other gender groups are doing. For example, you mentioned cooking, campaigning, etc. So I'm wondering what else from your experience and your research, in particular in conflict zones, could be done if you want to work, with these lenses of gender equality. What are your more concrete ideas that you maybe can share in the next 1 or 2-3 minutes maximum? I hope that was clear. I think Levin may be having issues of connection. Yeah. Okay, so we wait for Nevin a little bit and see if she can reconnect. Mishi, I move to you now. So, but to be honest, for me, it's basically a similar question I just shared with Nevin, how you are doing it, because you clearly said that if volunteering is done in the way that is being done now, in the traditional way, is really basically reproducing the typical patriarchal dominance model. So how do you do it differently? So you ensure that you do not replicate this dominance, patriarchal dominant model. Can you give us some examples to help us, more concretely create the new vision of volunteering?
Yes, I think at organizational level, what we are intentional about is everyone coming to the organization. We really embrace the individual agency. We do know that these are full individuals with their aspiration, with their talent, with their ability, with their need, and the organization has to recognize them as full individual with their agency and what they can do to deliver. We also recognize that we need them as much as they need us, and we're trying as much as possible to have horizontal kind of leadership, a shared collective leadership where every thought is counted, every position, every ideas is shared, but also the rewards are shared across the team. And specifically with the rewards, often we do feel that rewards has to translate, for example, to resources in terms of money, but recognition, appreciation, giving them opportunity that they are able to lead, for example, to exercise their talent and their passion, but also to create a conducive environment for them to do the work that they're doing. I think to us that's really important. And also, as I said, at community level, volunteerism has to alter relations of power. And that includes working with the community themselves. As an organization, we feel we don't have legitimacy to go, for example, in a certain community and for example, tell them this is what you need to do. We don't, and we discourage, for example, flying in volunteers because we know the cost of flying in volunteers and the cost of keeping them, the cost of recruiting them can be way too, those resources could even be more than enough to hire a local expert. So all those dynamics, I think, would transform volunteerism to be community-led and to be rewarded, recognized, and to shape the community for better.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
That's super clear, Michelle. Thank you for bringing the issue of rewards and helping us to think rewards and recognition of power, of the power of everybody, not just in terms of financial, even though we are saying it's super important, but it's also recognition of agency, recognition of power in the other, and particularly focusing in local participation and local leadership rather than moving people around from one place to the other to help. So how you transform that model, even, you know, cancel that model of external, internal volunteers, etc. So that's a challenging idea. Rosa Emilia, I don't know, how can I mean, for example, one question that I would like to come back to you in regards to how you are doing it in Colombia is, as you said, how you sustain participation in the long term. You know, you've been, as you said, in the Colombia peace process that is so long. It's 40 years of conflict, and now even you have a peace agreement and everything, but the activists and women and volunteers and communities are constantly mobilizing. How do you sustain that if you really at the same time want to do it in an unpaid way and wants to transform cultural relations? So can you give us some examples of how you do it for such a long time, even now? And what recommendations or what would you change if you want to ensure quality participation without ensuring that people do not get sick, do not suffer even more of what they already suffer?
Gracias, Cecilia. Yo creo que la participación sostenida de las mujeres fundamentalmente tiene que ver con un compromiso muy serio que se tiene en relación al país. Es cierto que este país ha tenido muchísimos años de conflicto. Yo creo que toda su historia ha sido signada por el conflicto, por muchas situaciones muy delicadas, pero también pienso que la participación de las personas y de las mujeres en particular han ido construyendo, han mantenido el tejido social, han hecho un trabajo desde lo local hasta lo nacional, y el movimiento de mujeres, nosotros lo llamamos acá movimiento social de mujeres y feminista, porque son dos movimientos que se juntan pero no son el mismo. Es un movimiento muy potente, pero tiene muchas barreras para su participación, y creo que ahí es clave decir que es un trabajo que realmente, bueno, las mujeres defienden a sus hijos, las mujeres, eso que ya sabemos, pero además de eso, en las últimas olas, digamos, de participación, las mujeres han defendido con mucha fuerza la posibilidad de llevar a través de su participación y su palabra nuevos temas, nuevas transformaciones. ¿Cómo hemos sostenido todo eso durante tantos años? Con muchísimo esfuerzo y con muchísimos costos. Yo creo que eso hay que cambiarlo muchísimo en el voluntariado. El costo del voluntariado sobre las mujeres es altísimo. Por ejemplo, en el acuerdo de paz, las mujeres durante todo el tiempo que estuvo dándose el acuerdo, a partir del primer año del acuerdo, las mujeres tuvimos que estar trabajando, y éramos muchas mujeres de manera incansable para que nuestros temas no salieran del acuerdo. Nos movíamos un metro y los temas salían del acuerdo. Entonces, eso es lo que es importante, digamos, en la participación voluntaria. Aquí la gente está muy agotada de participar institucionalmente, porque siente que participa, propone, hace, hace propuestas innovadoras y luego no se cumplen. Entonces eso puede ser muy agotante porque se pierde mucho sentido en la participación y la gente se va agotando. Pero además, en términos de recursos, la participación, esta participación formal, inclusiva, que se llama, al no tener consecuencias reales en la vida de las personas, pues se vuelve un ejercicio muy frustrante. Entonces yo creo que emocionalmente las mujeres, si bien seguimos muy comprometidas, hay agote, hay un agotamiento en términos de nosotras no podemos seguir intentando transformar el mundo cuando no hay unos mandatos, unos discursos, unas prácticas que nos reconozcan. Y al contrario, cada vez que nosotras impulsamos esas transformaciones de mandatos, prácticas y discursos, lo que se hace es que o se tilda, se descalifica en términos de que estamos en contra del statu quo o que es muy complicado, o muchas de las formas tradicionales y más conservadoras se vienen en contra de esas innovaciones, diciendo y poniendo principios morales en términos de que estamos acabando con la sociedad y que estamos generando más conflictos. Entonces yo creo que ahí, y termino diciendo en términos del voluntariado, yo creo, y nosotras intentamos hacer esto, que el voluntariado sea diverso, por ejemplo. Es decir, una mujer indígena no tiene por qué ser voluntaria solamente de una organización indígena. Las mujeres indígenas pueden aportar totalmente a una organización cualquier otra. O una mujer negra no tiene que estar restringida a ser voluntaria de una organización negra. Es decir, cómo rompemos todos esos límites y cómo ampliamos. Y además, cómo nos potenciamos tecnológicamente, porque la brecha tecnológica que hay entre el voluntariado de las mujeres y otros voluntarios es impresionante. Eso que nosotros decimos, nosotros trabajamos, mientras con todas las tecnologías alguien en el norte trabaja 5 o 6 horas, ese mismo trabajo para nosotras y nosotros y nosotres significa 18, 20 horas, 2 días de trabajo. Entonces, esa lógica tiene que romperse en el norte y en el sur. Gracias, Ceci.
Wow, Rosemilia, thank you so much. You brought so many interesting topics, but I maybe summarize 3 or 4 of them. One is the importance of involuntary and activism, the commitment to your country, the love to your country. That's what sustains the struggle and the work in the long term. And I think this is important also to think real sustainable voluntary and activist models, the linkages with the love for your country. Secondly, you said, like, if we participate, but they are not really institutional responses and they are not delivery, then participation goes into, it's a waste of time, and people get tired and exhausted, and maybe we'll move through what we are seeing now in Colombia, violence, protests, etc. So what's the responsibility of the governments, the responsibility of the organizations like the United Nations, those with power to ensure that there are real delivery in regards to the proposals? And finally, you talk about technology and breaking silos of different cultural groups so we can support each other and not just working separately, different group of people, but really also working intersectionally so I think these are 4 very important ideas and things to reflect if we want to create a model of volunteerism and participation that works. So that takes me ideally to Ignacio, because basically, I mean, Ignacio, you from Asuntos del Sur, you know very well, you know, you work in supporting people to participate and engage in the long term. So I'm wondering if you want to connect something with what Rosa Emilia just said. And first of all said, in particular, you mentioned of a trans group, for example, but also you recognize yourself as a gay man. And how do you ensure that you work with this even more marginalized group of people, and how you use technology as well in all these, you know, how do you use technology to ensure participation and for volunteering not to be so much burden, but to be more efficient, more faster, as Rosa Emilia was saying?
Bueno, muchas gracias, Cecilia, y agradezco, Rosemilia, digamos, tus palabras, porque realmente han condensado muchísimas cuestiones que, digamos, que compartimos las organizaciones que estamos trabajando en esta misma dimensión. Como les decía, y tomo esto último que dijo Rosemilia, esto de que no hace falta que una persona negra trabaje, tenga que estar solamente en una organización de personas negras o una persona indígena, de comunidad indígena, es la necesidad también de salir a buscar los talentos, ¿no? Porque uno dice, bueno, yo en mi organización es que nunca me llegan el currículum vitae de una persona negra o de una persona trans o de una... Bueno, perfecto, vamos a buscarlos porque están ahí. Y quizás justamente es como están históricamente marginalizados e invisibilizados, tenemos que hacer un esfuerzo en ese sentido de decir, bueno, vayamos, si nosotros trabajamos por la inclusión, trabajamos por la distribución del poder, trabajamos por deconstruir estas prácticas injustas, vayamos también, seamos parte de ese proceso. No está claro que una organización sola no va a poder modificarlo, pero sí tenemos que ser parte. Por eso yo hablaba en la primera ronda de la coherencia entre lo que perseguimos y cómo actuamos en nuestras organizaciones. Respecto al tema de la tecnología, es importantísimo, pero no tenemos que olvidar, sobre todo cuando trabajamos con activismos y personas que trabajan mucho en el territorio, que tiene que haber un equilibrio entre lo tecnológico y la presencialidad. Nosotros hemos tenido, digamos, hemos desarrollado muchas herramientas y cursos online maravillosos, pero digamos que si no iban acompañados de un acompañamiento presencial, pierden su valor, porque también se necesita un acompañamiento, sobre todo en temas digamos, de formación, de mentoreo, de tutorazgo, que primero y principal, la tecnología es importante, pero es importante que en el diseño de esa tecnología esas comunidades estén en el diseño, para que se apropien luego de esas herramientas. Porque si no terminamos haciendo herramientas que funcionan bien para mí, pero las voy a aplicar en un territorio distinto. Entonces es fundamental en ese sentido, sí la tecnología, pero que en la construcción de esas herramientas, las comunidades con las que vamos a actuar, o sea que el activismo sea partícipe en el diseño y la implementación de esas herramientas, ¿no? Poder balancear un poco lo tecnológico con lo virtual. Y una cosa más que me parece muy importante que también se dijo, también tenemos que, es importante en este día de deconstruir, porque vos dijiste también, Cecilia, que tiene muchas formas, puede llevar mucho tiempo, pero ya es hora de que tome menos tiempo la deconstrucción. Ya es hora de que, sobre todo también los hombres, seamos gays o no seamos gays, nos tomemos un poco más en serio la necesidad de deconstruir nuestras prácticas, de pensar nuestras masculinidades, pero, digamos, y ir tomando más compromiso, y también la necesidad de concientizar a los donantes de las organizaciones en que se tienen que destinar recursos, que el voluntariado no es mera, digamos, no es altruismo, se trabaja. Claro, se trabaja y se trabaja mucho, y se trabaja con calidad y se trabaja con un impacto. Y ese impacto no siempre se puede medir con números. Ese impacto es cualitativo, ese impacto es de largo plazo. Entonces, el trabajo de las organizaciones tiene que ser también, sí, de acompañamiento, pero también, digamos, de educación, sobre todo hacia quienes ponen los fondos y digamos, concientizar en la necesidad de que se tiene que invertir también en la distribución de poder, que se tiene que invertir en la calidad de las organizaciones para que las organizaciones pierdan esos vicios culturales que vienen trayendo sobre sus espaldas. Entonces, es claramente que es una agenda muy amplia, pero, digamos, hoy en día es una agenda que es impostergable. Y que, digamos, y por ejemplo, y con eso cierro, digamos, en el caso particular será muy autorreferencial, digamos, en nuestro caso, en nuestra organización, los hombres hemos aprendido, digamos, y hay cosas que ya, digamos, hemos aprendido estudiando, pero también con prácticas, digamos. Tampoco, digamos, es una cuestión que es como hacer ejercicio. Hay cosas que ya no se nos vienen a la cabeza. No vamos a participar nunca de un panel de solo hombres. No vamos a participar nunca de una selección para candidaturas donde no haya mujeres que también sean candidatas. No vamos a tener una dirección donde haya solo hombres. Digo, son cosas que ya hoy en día para nosotros son impensables. Bueno, esto que hace una organización que tiene base en Argentina, digamos, sencillamente puede ir reproduciéndose en muchas otras organizaciones en América del Sur, digamos, en Asia, en África, y uno se espera en todo el mundo.
Buenísimo. Thank you so much, Ignacio. I think that you also helping us to think of this idea of masculinities, no, and the role of men, and the role of power holders like donors and funders into helping and supporting us to change these power structures. It's not just anymore about big statements. It's really moving towards making different decisions, thinking differently, and involving men in this process, or anyone from any gender. So going beyond the idea of only about women, which I think is super important, and investing in organizational change, investing in innovation, investing in technology, and moving from the statements to practice. So I really appreciate your very concrete points. Before we move to Sonia, I don't know if Nevin, if you're connected now, if you want to say something, because we lost you when it was your turn. But I'm not sure how is your connection now. Maybe not very good. Anyway, Nevin, I hope at least you're listening, and then we can all exchange in the knowledge portal. So we have 10 more minutes to go before we give Shane Mutumbi from UMB the opportunity to share with us some thoughts, final thoughts, in terms of how all of this, could shape the state of the World Volunteerism Report to 2021. So, and hopefully give you at least a few minutes for you to ask questions to each other very quickly. We have a Q&A, my God. Sonia, what do you want to add? Being the last one of the list, and after everything you have heard, maybe I don't need to ask you anything. Maybe you just now have a lot of your own thoughts that you want to share with us to finalize this round.
Yeah, thank you. I think colleagues have, shared very, very critical key issues to take note if you want to build, the concept of volunteering from a feminist perspective, which is very core, because I think as a feminist, I believe if all what we do on this planet, if we can bring in a feminist touch in it, we will not be having violence, we will not be having, the multiple forms of discrimination and so on. And for us at Women for a Change, we are very deliberate and very intentional when we talk about volunteerism from a feminist perspective. We believe that volunteerism is an act of servant leadership. It has to be done voluntarily. It does not have to be coerced. And as such, we do have very, very strong guiding principles and core values, which is what guides, I think, which was also said by Emilia and Greta, I think. These are all principles that guide the work that we do, including, the work we work with volunteers. And one particular issues which we have brought into the organization, which I believe it's a good model and has worked, it's the fact that those who affiliate with Women for a Change as volunteers does not get to, be addressed as volunteers. These are individuals with a name and an agency, and they need to be addressed as per their name, as per their title. So you are affiliated with Women for a Change, but you have a specific task which has a title. So it must not necessarily be volunteers. And that also has kind of, broken down the power dynamics, and it's giving, the agency and the confidence with those who affiliate with the institution as volunteers. And there is also one important thing, I think Emilia also did talk about, you know, the overwhelming nature of working and how it can burn you down as women working in the peace movement and also as volunteers. We brought in the self-care concept, where we believe that the work we do is very strenuous and there is need for us to take care of ourselves. And that does not necessarily be because you are a staff, but everyone who is affiliated with the organization is treated the same and equally and given that equal opportunity to benefit like everyone. And all of this has helped, you know, broken down the power relations in the organization and giving the volunteers also space to innovate and think on their own and be very proud on the contributions they bring on board in order to advance women's rights. So I think all what we have said are very, very important in terms of building, you know, volunteerism from a feminist perspective. Thank you.
Okay. Sonia, thank you so much for again bringing the recognition of everyone's power, individual power, as a starting point to do, you know, more transformative, volunteering and participatory work. So connecting the collective with the individual power, I think that's important. And also you mentioned self-care. We have now 10 more minutes to go. So I'm now being proposed that Chris Migliora, maybe we are not going to have so much time to ask each other questions. If we want to give a space for taking some of the questions of the participants, but also everyone should know that we are moving this conversation also to the UNB knowledge portal. You will receive an email tomorrow with the link, so you can register in the UNB knowledge portal, share those questions. The speakers will be also registering and answering. We will be moderating a follow-up conversation, so this also continues and it's not just a 1 hour and a half webinar. So please look at your emails tomorrow, and also you will receive an online survey that we have produced for everybody to respond. So I wanted to give the opportunity to Chris Migliora, who is from the university in charge of writing the State of the World Volunteerism report. If you want Chris to share any thoughts or particular questions that may help you in the process of your research, I hope you are there.
I'm here also, Cecilia.
You're back, Nevin. Nice. So please, Nevin, do you want to add anything in a couple of moments before?
Yes,
please.
Yes, I just would like to draw your attention in the global report that we have to talk about or mention about something about governance of volunteering or governance of volunteer efforts, which is we have our states to consider actually. In Egypt, for example, we already have opportunities, lots of opportunities according to legislations and constitutions, which is calling people to more participation and community participation and care more about social change, especially in gender equality. We have lots of articles about gender equality according to constitution, and we also have a judiciary body related to competing discriminations, and one of its forms on gender. Also, we have at least 25% of participation in local council should be women, which it means that according to political will, we have certain spaces. We have to follow it as a voluntary calling for gender equality. The issue is how to actually lobbying, advocate to use this space and to encourage our states as well, community stakeholders to willing women participation in the community and accept their advocacy, especially in issues that community is not welcoming actually, like early marriages, stop female genital mutilation, stop early marriages and other harmful traditions, personal status law, and whatever else related to women and the child rights.
Mm-hmm. That's very useful. I mean, if I get your point, I think you are saying, you know, moving from policy and research to real action. So the institutions that are discriminating.
Yes, and we have we have to push our states to keep their promises. We have to push our policies, political leaders to keep their promises toward women and the community. And this also is a kind of advocacy. It's not also what I mean is not also standing only for legislations or constitutional rights. It's also about freedom of association and the freedom of expression for women, and get the chance actually for people to associate themselves, especially in difficult times within COVID or after COVID, and what we are facing according to economically and social stakes.
Excellent. Thank you, Naveen. I think after all, we are talking about human rights.
Yes.
And being true and implementing the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as all UN member states have declared, and moving from a statement and declaration to action and to real change. So thank you, Naveen. I'm happy you managed to reconnect. Chris from the University of East Anglia is in charge of writing the report, and the UNB team is proposing me to give him some space to do some remarks and maybe ask some questions before we give Shane the floor to close the event. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to do the cross question session that I really wanted. So I'm not the only one, you know, in the middle in between you, but I hope we can do it in the knowledge portal from tomorrow. So you are all invited to go there. Chris, are you there?
Yeah. Yes, I'm here, Cecilia. I hope you can hear me.
Yes. Nice to meet you.
So thank you. Yes, thanks so much. It's been really interesting listening to all the discussions that we've just had now. I think there are already very important aspects that we can integrate into the report, or something that we can actually look further through the case studies that we're looking at. So we're actually in the process of conducting research at the moment, looking at volunteering and citizen-state relationships. I think what I would like to kind of pose as something that we could talk about in our continuing conversations, especially with our panel of guests here, perhaps in the portal or in some other medium, is this idea of citizen-state relationship or people-state relationship, because this is really kind of at the core of the report. We're trying to understand how volunteering could be a pathway for an inclusive social contract. That means a social contract that takes into account the expectations, but also the expectations and the needs of the people, and how can they work together with the state. I think Naveen has kind of talked a little bit about that earlier. How are you able to work with the state for you to be able to produce certain kinds of impact, like deliberative governance or co-production of services? So I guess that's one thing we could think about as we move this discussion further. What does a feminist perspective bring in this people-state relationship? We are already talking about power relationships, and we know that working with the state, you are already kind of challenged with so much unequal power relationships. We're talking about governance mechanisms, but we're also talking about accountability. How can volunteers make the government accountable for some of these promises? But also, how can we really work together? How can the state and the people work together towards producing successful outcomes towards the sustainable development goals? I think what does a feminist perspective, what can it bring to that kind of conversation would be interesting for us to take up now, or perhaps some other opportunity in the future. But thanks so much for all the speakers. It's been great listening to all of your inputs.
Thank you, Chris. That's very useful, because I mean, obviously that conversation, it's kind of started in this hour, but it's a big question that we would be happy to explore how to continue engaging with the speakers and others, so to help you answering. But the citizen-state relation, it's a vital thing. So before we start finishing, I'm going to take two questions from the participants. The first one is quite interesting. It's saying that basically he or she, whoever is asking the question, feels that feminism has remained a bit elitist, and it has not scaled to reach the usually hard to reach populations who have remained behind, especially in the global South. So I don't know if you agree with that statement of feminism being an elitist, but and how volunteerism can find practical way to engage and to scale up feminism in a more large way. If anyone wants to react, and then I have a question in particular for Rosemilia, and then we can move to Shane to share some final thoughts from UNB. What do you think of feminism being elitist and volunteering helping or not helping to reach out to most marginalized or difficult to reach communities and groups?
Mishi is raising her hand.
Mishi, yes.
Yes, thank you. I feel, at least based on our experience, feminism as the concept, the words and the language, the sophistication of the language and all the jargons that we use may sound elitist, but in most of the community that we work, the ideal, the practice, the fabric and the core of feminism has been practiced across the board in so many ways. As for example, as a leader, we are learning on how the principle of feminism has been practiced in the community. Of course, there is a disconnect from what is being practiced, but also of the language that they use. If you go, for example, in the community that I came from, they will tell you how women stood up to ensure that a person like me gets right to go to school, but they might not use the language that, for example, in a feminist circle that it can be used. But also there's one important, if you allow me, point that I wanted to raise, especially on the volunteerism and respecting of humans' dignity. There have been a tendency, for example, to send volunteer in a very compromising situation where we think it's too much risky to send our own team, our own staff, and then volunteer became the only option to send in this very unsafe, especially operating in a very undignified way. But also there is a question on how we protect the dignity of our volunteer and protecting their culture and understanding their culture of them as individuals, but also the community that they serve. I think that needs to be at the core on how we support and engage with the volunteer across the board. But I do think that volunteers have been the connector between organization, state, and the community. And I think possibly one example, I'm coming from Tanzania originally, and the state in so many years, they have been using, I think if for a specific example, 5-6 years, there is massive enrollment of the primary school, and the state didn't have capacity to construct all these schools. And then they go back to the community and say, community, you provide labor and we provide material. So the state budget was mostly, for example, to buy the cement, the iron sheet, while the community themselves, they organize the local resources, they also organize labor. Of course, the model has different challenges as well, because if you go down to it, most of the women labor were not compensated, but men's labor, for example, they will find a bit of money from local authority to pay at least as a wage to men laborer, but the same is not true for the women, for example, who bring water or the women who bring sand in that asset. But there have been, in most cases, women and community coming together, and the state have been using volunteer to construction, in building society, and building infrastructure, but also in responding to crises. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Mishi. That's a lot of very different, interesting points. But basically, what I'm understanding that you are saying is that feminism is a lived experience, and if we learn to embrace that lived experience and talk with the language of life, and not necessarily with all these big words, we can see that in a way we are all feminists. Or because we want dignity, we want to be recognized. We want power. We want our power to be recognized in every moment of our life. And also you mentioned something that relates with Chris, what Chris says. When is the state sometimes, you know, kind of using volunteers and putting them at the forefront of some responsibilities that should be done by the state, you know, and sometimes putting them at risk. So how can you find a balance in these blended models of community participation and the state in this blended partnership? So the volunteers are not used, but they are also protected, in particular in situations in which they are working in crisis or conflict context, as you mentioned. So that's, I think, another important thing, that not to always talk about the nice things of participation, but also how participation can be manipulated in so many different ways we need to be aware of and act upon. Rosemilia, I have a question for you, and then we just move to Shane. We are now 3 minutes over the hour and a half, but we still have 76 participants in the room, so hopefully people can stay another 5 minutes. The person asking this, Rosa, they are saying that they agree with you that it's important to connect these different groups, like you mentioned, indigenous group, Afro groups, Afro-Colombian groups, etc. But that sometimes people who wants to help are coming from, you know, from the white background, from the cities of Colombia or any other Latin American country, and they want to go to the indigenous community, Afro communities, and with all the city kind of white academic perhaps approach wants to help. So how can you deconstruct that power relation so you create this environment of encounter and horizontal exchange when you have these power relations between also, you know, rural areas, cities, white people, more, you know, trained people are all, you know, that you know what I mean. I'm trying to summarize the question, but how do you work with that intercultural challenge?
Bueno, yo creo que ese es uno de los desafíos más grandes que tenemos, porque así como cambiar las relaciones entre hombres y mujeres en todas sus diversidades es difícil, cambiar cualquier tipo de relación de poder es difícil. Yo siempre pongo este ejemplo y Cecilia me lo ha oído otras veces, porque por las mañanas cuando yo me levanto saludo muy amablemente a Rosa Emilia y después saludo al patriarca que llevo dentro, porque yo creo que todas y todos tenemos que reconocer que nosotros tenemos adentro muchas dificultades que están impresas en el inconsciente y que solamente haciéndolas conscientes, dándose uno cuenta de estos temas, es que uno puede transformarlas. Ignacio me dará la razón, pero muchos hombres gay también son tremendamente patriarcales y es dificilísimo tener relaciones, o muchas mujeres feministas también podemos ser tremendamente patriarcales. Entonces yo creo que ahí hay cosas que transformar profundamente. Y creo que primero la humildad, ¿no? La humildad frente al conocimiento. Es que yo creo que nosotros hemos sido formados en un mundo donde creemos que el mundo blanco occidental tiene la verdad. Y yo creo que tenemos que plantear que la verdad no existe, la verdad se construye de manera permanente y yo creo que ese es un principio también del feminismo. La verdad se va construyendo, la verdad está hecha de un montón de puntos ciegos y de identidades y de experiencias que hay que descubrirlas y de lugares situados. Entonces, claro, cuando tú eres una voluntaria muy del norte, que vienes y que quieres ser voluntario y que respondes a esos criterios de una sociedad blanca mayoritaria, dominante y que tiene la verdad, pues es muy difícil que tú no manifiestes eso en las regiones donde estás. Entonces, creo que ahí hay unas preguntas muy serias para ambas partes. Yo creo que en muchos casos, en Colombia, muchas personas voluntarias que responden a la sociedad más blanca, etcétera, que se van a pueblos indígenas, a comunidades indígenas o a comunidades afro, también son profundamente racializadas. Entonces, todo lo que dicen es racializado, pero a su vez, esas personas tienden a racializar o a exotizar a las personas con las que trabajan. Entonces yo creo que ahí tenemos que cambiar esos valores que tenemos en la cabeza, en el corazón y en la práctica. Esos mandatos, es que nosotros nos hemos construido mandatos de poder absurdos. Es decir, creemos, sí, los blancos occidentales se creen superiores y eso lo tienen metido en el ADN o lo tenemos metido en el ADN. Entonces creo que ahí la humildad, el aprendizaje, saber que cuando tú vas como voluntario o voluntaria no vas a enseñar, sino que vas a aprender también, que es un diálogo de saberes. Creo que es un diálogo de saberes. Entonces poder tener eso en la cabeza, cómo dialogo en el conocimiento, cómo dialogo en el saber y cómo construyo innovativamente nuevas cosas desde distintas miradas y distintos puntos. Pero también yo creo que ahí, como se racializa, exotiza todo muchas veces, también para las voluntarias y voluntarios del norte, muchas veces o de otro lugar, les parece fantástico estar en una comunidad. Y entonces, y un poco lo estoy diciendo muy seriamente, porque muchas chicas que van a comunidades les parece lo máximo tener algún tipo de relación sentimental con alguno de los chicos de esa comunidad, porque qué bueno tener relaciones amorosas o de algún tipo con esto. Y eso es parte de esa exotización y muchas veces del uso de muchas voluntarias desde una perspectiva más sexual, más de todo, porque hay esa idea de que así me integro a la comunidad. Yo creo que ahí también hay una relación de mandatos y límites que hay que poner y de nuevas conversaciones para que tampoco desde la racialización se pase al abuso sexual de ninguna de las partes. Entonces creo que ahí tenemos graves ejemplos como el caso de Haití o graves ejemplos de muchas comunidades que han jugado papeles terribles en términos de lo que significa ese exotismo y esa falta de respeto y de diálogo de saberes en el reconocimiento de unos y otros en la diversidad.
Buenísimo, Rosemilia. Thank you so much. You open up a new whole discussion, which is very hot at the moment in the sector with these issues of abuse from the not only volunteers but even staff of international or regional or international, and abusing this space of sexual interaction because of this, creating these exotic situations, etc. So, and I think that's also bring light to all the conversation that in the international sector is sometimes called safeguarding and protection, etc. And putting in place policies, procedures, but in particular real dialogue and real, as you said, dialogue between different narratives to deconstruct in a humble approach the way we work and the way we behave and how we reproduce these power relations in a patriarchal way. People look in Google what it means patriarchal. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful that still we have 73 people here and we have already passed 10 minutes. So I thank you all. I hope you can tomorrow register in the UNB knowledge portal so we can continue the conversation for the next 10 days. That will be open and you can enter into the website, put questions and people will answer, etc. And before we go, I wanted to kindly ask Jane Mutumbi, what are your final thoughts before we leave the room and say goodbye to everybody. Jenny.
So, hi everyone. First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much to all our panelists, to all our attendees, to Cecilia and her team. From all of us at UNV, we appreciate your inputs. This has been a thought-provoking discussion. We've learned a lot from you. I'll probably just highlight just a couple of key messages that came from this discussion. Definitely, it has given us a lot of food for thought that we'll then use in terms of the information gathered through this webinar for the report. So in terms of the key messages, we had very clearly the issue of recognition of women's unpaid work and the ability to innovate, which links also very well with one of the themes of the report, as Chris, who's the researcher on the report, said. The issue of altering power relations must change, and this not only is from a gender perspective, but also looking more broadly at masculinities, and also looking at, in relationship to volunteerism, how the notion of community-led volunteerism should be given more, more space. Other, I think, key themes that came out was the role of women as in the grassroots who are volunteers, who are the least paid. And we heard about the blended model, where there are areas that different regions where they're looking at models where also they can get these women to get paid. The role of technology was discussed and how it can support and ensure that volunteerism how it can ensure that these spaces for people to collaborate. So that was another important area. And in terms of how all this information comes together for the report, integrating gender into the report, I think it has given us a lot of food for thought in terms of how to look critically at power relationships, whether that is through the deliberative processes that Chris was discussing, in terms of how to look critically and interrogate the recognition of women volunteers, for example, including in different settings. There was the example given about women in conflict. So how to look at the whole notion of peace building, for instance. And in terms of participation, elements to consider, the way women's voices are amplified or not. We had the, in terms of how women are, sometimes their opinions are dismissed, their perspectives are not taken into account. And in terms of just the innovation part, where the issues of spaces and whether they exist where women can innovate, that's also an area that the report is looking at, and probably as we move forward, making sure that some of these points are not lost, and they're issues that we'll continue to interrogate in the report. Mm-hmm. So I would just say that, again, we are very appreciative of your perspectives, and we'll take this information. We have it all on record, and we look forward also to the discussion on the focus group, as well as on the knowledge portal. And all of this will help us and inform us as we move along, even with the research and in the writing of the report. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would like to thank you too, but I wish if we couldn't continue working about the report يعني more together, actually, because the discussion were very important and lots of ideas have been raised up. I think if we could write something as a background papers or supportive material, it will be great. Yani I hope to keep cooperation as much as we can.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nevin. I think that's the spirit of the initial conversation. And thank you, Shane, for your final thoughts. One thing that I also need to do is to write a paper about this global dialogue and the focus group. So most probably I will be in touch with you as well to get, you know, from in that shape of a short paper or 2-3 pages paper. To get your inputs based on this conversation, if you don't mind, and obviously to continue the discussions with all the committed participants at the other side of the screen. Thank you, UNV, the United Nations Volunteers, for thinking out of the box and including this topic for organizing a global dialogue, and in particular for Subir al Sur team and Global Change team that from SES Foundation, you know, that in 2 or 3 weeks moved so quickly together to mobilize and make it real. It literally, we started working 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it was quite much, but definitely interesting, because we need to think differently about volunteering. We need to deconstruct the way volunteering is done and learn how to do it differently and hopefully better, so it doesn't become another tool for maintaining, you know, unfair power relations. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to the speakers, and we continue by email, and then we will put it online for even more people to look and comment. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, Ignacio, Jane, Nevin, Micaela, Julieta, Ana, the interpreters. Thank you so much for your work. Margaret, Selina, Mishi, amazing to have met you. See you soon.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Sonia. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.